Good evening from Swansea wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. This weekend is an absolutely stacked one in the world of professional wrestling, with WWE SmackDown tonight, AEW Collision tomorrow, as well as Battle of the Belts, and Impact Wrestling's Slammiversary pay-per-view. So we certainly have a lot to talk about in this weekend's preview. But let me firstly introduce the stacked panel that we have today. Firstly, let's go Clark Taylor, the co-host of the show. And I think I said firstly about 5 times in that intro.
Nah, it's all good. I'm stoked to be here. How are you guys doing today? It's Friday. Couldn't be more fired up. We got more wrestling on tap. Like you said, Battle of the Belts, Collision, and Slammiversary. We got SmackDown tonight. What more can you ask for than that? In the dead of summer, too. It's a beautiful day out in Southern California. I'm stoked to be here.
It's not a beautiful day here in Swansea. I went to the store earlier and I came back and I was just absolutely drenched from the rain. It was not a fun experience. But let's move on to somebody who knows all too well about rain, and that is Coby Galenzoski over in Canada. How are you today, Coby?
Yeah, I don't know about so much about rain. I know about the frozen counterpart, which is snow, because we have snow for 6 months out of the year. Anyway, yeah, we're here. We have the loaded weekend of wrestling. Battle of the Belts, Slammiversary, Collision, SmackDown. There's so many shows, so much to talk about. We only have 45 minutes as usual. We're going to talk about as much as we can.
We absolutely will be, and it's going to be a very exciting show. But also joining us today, we have Shad. How are you, Shad?
What's going on, man? I am doing well. Here to talk about a long list of wrestling that we have from today and tomorrow, and I'm excited for it, so let's go.
Yes, indeed, and I'm loving those new glasses, Shad. They are sick. But let's get right into things, and let's get right into Slammiversary, because one of Impact's main pay-per-views is tomorrow night, and the big main event of the show is Alex Shelley defending the Impact World Championship against Nick Aldis. Two guys who I'm a big fan of in what's sure to be a banger of a main event. But the Knockouts World Championship is also being defended, as Deonna Purrazzo is going to be defending against Trinity, formerly known as Naomi in WWE. That match a lot of people are excited about as well. Elsewhere on the card, we've got Bully Ray and Dina teaming up to face Scott D'Amore and somebody to be added. We also have Chris Sabin versus Leo Rush for the X Division Championship. ABC versus Brian Myers and Moose versus Rich Swann and Sami Callihan versus Subculture in a 4-way tag team match for the Impact World Tag Team Championships. Eddie Edwards versus Frankie Kazarian. The Coven versus Killer Kelly and Masha Slamovich for the Impact World Knockout Tag Team Championships. Then we got Jody Threat and the Death Dolls against the Chantourage in a 6-person mixed tag team match. And then finally, last but not least, we have Joe Hendry defending against Kenny King for the Impact Digital Media Championship. A lot of championships and a lot of championship matches, but it is a stacked card. Clark, I'll pass it to you first. What match are you the most excited for?
I mean, the one that I think is the main event is going to be Aldis and Shelley for sure. We know Alex Shelley's history in not only Impact, but TNA. I mean, you could argue he's the heart and soul of the company, right? His X Division history, his history with the Motor City Machine Guns, now carrying the title. It's awesome. Aldis's signing was such a big get for Impact. We thought he might be headed elsewhere at certain times, and he wasn't. And it started on commentary. Now we're here. Time to challenge. We've seen him carry the strap for a company like NWA for a long time, and I don't know if that's what we're going to see tonight necessarily, but if we do, another long Nick Aldis reign is probably in the cards. Yeah. And that would make a lot of sense if that's where we end up. I won't be too mad. I'm okay with it. but I do love Alex Shelley carrying the title and getting kind of what he's earned over all of these years of work and impact in TNA.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, that's what I kind of feel that this Alex Shelley reign's just kind of been. I feel like they just are going to give him, a couple of months reign or whatever this has been. And it's kind of just, thank you to him because he deserves it. But I do have a feeling that Nick Aldis will be taking that strap. But now let's move on. And let's move on next to Coby Galenzoski. Coby, what match are you the most excited for?
So you were listing off some of the matches on the pay-per-view. You did not reveal the full card. And yes, of course, we can have all the hype for matches such as Nick Aldis versus Alex Shelley and all that. And of course, I'll let Shad introduce the other one. But the match I'm most excited for is kind of the one that I feel is going to be the sleeper match that no one's watching Slammiversary for this match. But I think it's going to be really solid because we've seen this match already on one of the past Impact Plus specials, and the stakes are growing. And like you always say, the more you have the matches, the more chemistry you gain, the more you know each other, the more intense the matches end up being. That's a thing that happened in Japan, that things that happen in wrestling, period. I think the match that could possibly steal the show is Eddie Edwards versus Frankie Kazarian. A match that Ben Allison did not mention. But I mean, both of these men are, I don't want to say in the top of their game, but Eddie Edwards has been someone that if you put him on the pay-per-view card, he's going to deliver a great match throughout the past year. He's faced Jonathan Gresham. He had a really fun, I think it was, last rites, but essentially a casket match against PCO. And then he already faced Frankie Kazarian last month. This is a rematch. This is going to be entertaining. Frankie Kazarian went to Impact because he felt it was best for him. I give him all the credit. This match surely will be entertaining.
Absolutely. I do agree with you there. And that is a bit of a wild shout. Another wild shout is saying I didn't say it. I did say that one. Although the one I can't remember if I said is the Ultimate X match, which is Jonathan Gresham versus. I did say that one. Okay, cool. I didn't. Okay, that one was the one which I missed. Jonathan Gresham versus Mike Bailey versus Kevin Knight versus Angels versus Kushida in an Ultimate X match. And that actually, to me, might be the match that I'm most excited for. But what about you, Shad? Which do you think is going to steal the show?
The match that I am the most excited for, and the match that I feel is just off of notoriety and who is in it, is the most meaningful main event for the company, is that title match between Deonna Purrazzo and Trinity, formerly known as Naomi. The signing of Naomi, knowing what happened a year ago with her and Mercedes, Sasha Banks, being out of the game for a while and coming to Impact, that's a needle mover. It's been a while since they've got someone with that much of a following and star power from a major company coming into Impact, especially past these last couple years where we've had the pandemic and whatnot. And I'm just really excited to see her wrestle in a match like this, because the person she's going against is, in my opinion, probably one of the best women's wrestlers, one of the best wrestlers in the entire world, in Deonna Purrazzo, the virtuosa. I've liked the build to it. I feel like it's a match of respect, which I always like. I feel like it doesn't need to have some sort of weird, like trying to fake a heel type of thing. I think Deonna is one of those like primetime players for them that has consistently been just elevated so much. She's really recreated herself on Impact. And I think being able to be in the ring with someone like Naomi, I know that's going to be, Trinity is going to be something that is going to mean a lot to her. And I just love both of their styles of wrestling. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of fun stuff. I think there's going to be, I think it's going to be a good opportunity to show people why Trinity is one of the best, women superstars in the pro wrestling too, and why it's just not character work for her. She could go in the ring. Like, people forget her match with Charlotte Flair, like on SmackDown, was it last year? Like, she could go, and I think we're going to see a great match. Salute to Impact, man. 3 very strong women's matches. Women's wrestling is incredible. We need to just have it more on the spectrum and other promotions and whatnot too. WWE, AEW, I'm talking to y'all. So, but that's the match I'm most excited for. We get to see Trinity, probably bring some gold to the Fatu bloodline, huh?
No, I 100% agree with everything you just said there, Shad. I mean, I've said it for ages now. Impact at times, I think it's hit or miss for me personally. But one thing which you can never criticize them for is their women's division. They booked their women's division better than any, company in the United States, at the very least, has done in a long, long while. And NXT at one point was kind of going head to head with them. But apart from that, nothing's really come close. AEW were, kind of hoping that they would, but unfortunately to me so far they haven't. But Coby, do you have another prediction?
I mean, yes, I do have another prediction, and I think it's just based on what we've seen in the past year. Is the Impact Plus pay-per-views that they do between the big 4 that they normally do have been main evented by male superstars. Hard to Kill was main evented by Jordan Grace and Mickie James. Rebellion was main evented by Deonna Purrazzo and Jordan Grace as well. I think this week, especially this weekend, I think they do main event with Deonna Purrazzo and Trinity. And I think there is that potential to set up something else for after the match. We do know that they announced very shortly after, during Mania weekend, that Impact and New Japan are going to do another partnered show in August. And it has a lot of hype towards it based on announcing so very early like it did. I think we could potentially see someone from that side of New Japan that appears on Impact to set up something with Deonna.
Oh, I'd love for that to happen, and I think you're probably on the money, Coby, because I mean Trinity's
give me Julia versus Deonna, please.
Oh, that would be filthy. That would be lovely. But yeah, I mean Trinity probably is the biggest draw they have now. So yeah, I mean looking at that card, she's probably the biggest draw. So that would make a lot of sense for that match to be the main event. And it's likely, at least in my eyes, that Trinity will be taking the gold. So to do it on a big stage like that, that will be great. But let's continue the conversation about women's wrestling, and let's talk about WWE specifically. Tonight's episode of SmackDown, where Bianca Belair will be getting a title shot against Asuka. And this match, I think, could be a banger. However, I'm absolutely 110% certain it's going to end in a DQ or something or other, and Charlotte's going to get involved. Because it's clear as day to anybody watching the product, and they are building towards that triple threat match at SummerSlam. And I really cannot see them, having a clean match here and then doing that. I think whether it's Charlotte interrupts, there's a double count out, I think there's going to be something tonight that's going to cost this match, and we won't get a result, and it's going to be, disqualification or something like that. And that's a bit disappointing, but I understand why they do it. I've said before, I don't have an issue with disqualifications. I don't have an issue with double countouts, as long as they are done right and they are done, as a rarity. They're not done regularly, as WWE have often done in, their entire history, pretty much. But Clark, what do you think about this match? And do you think we might get a clean winner?
I feel like I should be more excited than I am for Bianca Belair versus Asuka on free television. And it's just, I think there has to be some kind of shenanigans, whether it's a DQ or a non-clean finish or not. I don't know which, but Charlotte has to get involved here, because we've seen Bianca and Asuka so many times, and the storyline hasn't built further in a way where it's advanced really either one. I think we all, as big fans of the product, know just how great Asuka is and just how great Bianca is. And for some reason, it just hasn't delivered the way I would have expected. The Mania match was awesome, don't get me wrong, but this should be a bigger deal than it is, and it just isn't. And Charlotte's involvement, I don't know how much it helps, but I hope it does. And I hope we get really, really, really incredible wrestling in this triple threat match. If that's what the plan is, and that's what is going to be the scoop at SummerSlam, I want that to be like a career definer for one of the three, where it's just as good as we've ever seen them, to re-elevate three of the best women's stars in that division. We just talked about how great of a job Impact does booking the knockouts. I think WWE does a really good job of booking the women at times, or it feels like this, where it's just the same. Stale is too harsh, but it's just not, it's missing the fire. It's missing the like that it factor that makes a storyline, makes you want to see someone get their butt kicked, right? I don't necessarily feel that all the way with Bianca and Asuka at this point, because we've seen them so many times, and they're two of my favorite wrestlers.
Yeah.
They're two of the best. That's what's but I can't even put my finger on exactly what it is that it's missing, but it's something. I don't necessarily know that that's Charlotte Flair, but I just hope that it ignites this feud in a way, becomes a three-way feud, and it ignites, and we can carry from there. Sort of, not forget, but just mull over this little bit of slow time is what I would say.
Yeah, no, that I do agree with that. And the disappointing thing is, this is the only thing, which is the only match which has been advertised so far at this moment in time, at least, for SmackDown tonight. And like you said, we're not really that excited for it because, well, I mean, it's quite predictable, to be completely honest with you. So it's not like I'm not super excited to watch SmackDown tonight, and I should be, because it's WWE's flagship show. That's the big money-making show, and I'm not excited for it, and I should be. They do also have a Jey Uso segment announced. They have that he's gonna be there, and he's going to address the fact that he challenged Roman Reigns last week for the championship. But of course, when he challenged Roman Reigns last week for the championship, Roman Reigns isn't going to be here tonight. So it's not like Roman Reigns is going to, come down and give his 2 cents on the matter. But maybe Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns will get confirmed, and I would love for that to happen. I'll now pass this to anybody who wants to answer it. Perhaps Coby, you'll want to jump on this one. What do you think about WWE not announcing a lot of matches ahead of time? Because some people say AEW announced too many ahead of time, but then others, like today, WWE haven't announced any. Do you think there's a perfect balance there somewhere?
I mean, I do. I fully agree. I think there is a perfect balance because we see that type of thing. I don't want to say almost within NXT, but we do. NXT has a lot of stuff announced. Like, last week they had Tiffany Stratton versus Ivy now announced. They have the Braun Breaker match announced. They had the Cora Jade match announced. But the entire thing, not the entire show, but the show was kicked off with the Judgment Day showing up. Carmelo Hayes shows up, and then that made the main event. I always like that fact that you can advertise something that is going to potentially create another match.
Yeah.
We've seen that. We've seen that multiple times on SmackDown. We've seen them advertise some form of Usos and Paul Heyman, and then that's when Heyman was like, hey, Jey Uso, you're going to face Austin Theory. And I guess that's a terrible Paul Heyman impression. But I like that happy medium. AEW almost announces everything. They do announce everything that's going to happen on that show. I think that works for them because they very much they announce everything that's going to happen, and that tells you, okay, do you want to watch that? WWE has that room to always give that additional, like, oh, we're going to make a match that why it's happening because we give you a promo to serve it, to create the purpose for that match. AEW announces everything. I refer to this all the time, and I'll do it quick. Last year, we saw the double ring battle royal that Brody King won to get a title shot. I said, okay, the next week on Dynamite, when you're supposed to have that match in the main event, you kick it off with Jon Moxley. You give the people who didn't watch last week or don't care about the match in general, and especially with the big lead-in, you give people a reason to care about that main event match. That's what WWE truly does well, and at least they give some form of reasoning for a match to happen.
Bang on the point. I do. I feel like I'm doing a lot of agreeing this show, but I do agree with that. I think you put it perfectly, Coby. But let's keep on the topic about things being announced ahead of time, and let's talk about the only thing announced currently for AEW's Battle of the Belts, which takes place tomorrow night following AEW Collision and going head-to-head with Slammiversary. And yeah, the only match currently announced for that show is Luchasaurus versus Shawn Spears. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm just not too hyped about this one because they've not really given me much of a reason to care. And I honestly, I feel like, and I've always felt this way, that Shawn Spears has kind of gotten too much hate. I know there was expectations were high for him when he jumped to AEW. And yeah, maybe his matches didn't live up to the quality standard that some people wanted, but I still thought he was solid, and I think he's a great, great promo. I loved him in WWE as Ty Dillinger, and I do think that he has a place in AEW. So there we are, but at the same time, they cannot have the TNT Championship switch hands this quickly once again. But Shad, I'll pass it to you. What is your thoughts heading into this match between Luchasaurus and Shawn Spears?
I think it's a solid match for that title, and I think it's a happy median within both competitors. I think with Shawn Spears, we haven't seen him in a while, so it's kind of giving him more of a different character arc. I like the little vignette that they had last week in regards to it. So I think that will definitely play a part on kind of a redemption story. He's going against, Christian. He's going against Luchasaurus. And it's going to kind of make the fans in the crowd, and it's in Canada too. So him being from there, it'll definitely have, the crowd on his side. So I think that sense the match makes sense. Am I excited for it? Not entirely. It's kind of a little random in a way too. And it just goes back to this title. I feel like it's just become a very odd title. It's either it switches hands or you just have super heavy trying to be a dominant champ and whatnot. And I don't know. I really just don't have a lot of care. I've never been a big fan of the Battle of the Belt pay-per-views. I always feel like they're just an extended hour of just television for that, but they've never had you have a title of a program like that. It should have more prestige. It should have, you're stacking the card with some great title matches amongst every title on your company, if not most of the titles. But it's 3 or 4, whatever matches, and it just doesn't draw me in to want to continue to watch it. And it's gonna be on Saturday night. They're not doing it after Rampage this time, so it'll start a little bit, I guess, earlier. I guess it'll be on a little earlier, right? Because Collision, after Rampage, it'll start at 11, so it'll start at 10. But
yeah,
it is what it is. I don't got too much to talk about it on that. Besides that, hopefully I do agree with you on that though. I think Shawn Spears is great. I love the chairman gimmick thing that he had. I liked a lot of it when he was doing his heel work. Part of it was the Pinnacle, but I don't know. I feel like I just haven't seen him in a while, and I don't know if this essential thing is gonna make me just be up in arms to want to see the match. So
yeah, no, that's a great point, and you also touched on it. The timing of the show. Of course, WWE do a 3-hour show every week with Raw, but in general, wrestling fans, I'm particularly keen on 3-hour shows, and that this week's AEW Collision is essentially a 3-hour show now with Battle of the Belts as the 3rd hour. It will be interesting to see the rating, as of course, Collision does get higher ratings. So will that follow into Battle of the Belts, or will people tune out? We'll have to wait and see, but they haven't built to it much. And yeah, when Battle of the Belts, first initially started, there was a lot of hype around it. And it died by like the second event. It really did. And now it's to a point where very few people do watch them. But now let's talk about AEW Collision, because we are going to have the final of the women's Owen Hart tournament, where Ruby Soho will be taking on either Willow or Athena, who will face off tonight on AEW Rampage, and then the winner of those two will go on to face Ruby Soho. So, Clark, you've got a couple of predictions here to, explain. Firstly, who will win between Willow and Athena tonight, and then will either of those women beat Ruby Soho tomorrow?
As much as we joke about not watching Rampage, I think Willow and Athena is going to be a match worth watching, and it's going to be awesome no matter who wins. If I'm picking right now, I think it's kind of Willow's time. Given the youth and given how over she is, let's get Willow and Ruby. But I want Athena to take Willow to the brink, right?
Yeah.
Before she faces Ruby. In the finals, dang, this is a tough one.
It is.
I would love to see Willow Nightingale win this. But I think at the end of the day, logically speaking, it's time to give Ruby Soho her flowers. And it's such a tough pick to make. This is the most difficult prediction of the show for me right now. But I'm going to take Ruby. I think because it's Owen Hart Cup, maybe an Owen Hart finish. I'd like to see a clean finish in the finals. But if she did cheat and to try to lean into being a bigger heel, I wouldn't mind that either. Because it would fit the Owen Hart thing too. He did some of that himself. And it might not be the worst way to still allow Willow to shine in the finals, but take the loss. But if I've got to put my name on one, I think Ruby wins the tournament. And I think Willow wins tonight.
Oh, my mic was muted there for a second. New mic and still making the same old mistakes. And I've also just put in the on the comments over on YouTube a comment I meant to put in the private chat. Well, I mean, we've all made that mistake, but wow. But I'm going to throw it to you quickly, Shad. What about you? Do you agree with Clark? Do you think it's Ruby Soho's time?
I think they are going to give Ruby Soho the Owen because I feel like she was one of those big signings for the women's division, and we haven't seen her get an opportunity to kind of be given her flowers, like he said, with a championship or anything like that. She's come close in many, many matches for each respected title. I think just off of seniority and just her really putting in a lot of work, she is deserving of the Owen. I love Willow Nightingale. I think she's incredible. But like I mentioned, she had her opportunity to have that, the title over in the match with Mercedes. Yeah. And I don't think she necessarily needs the Owen as much as Ruby does. I think this is something to help Ruby continuously, just give her that, and you can keep building her because they have a lot of energy into that faction with the Outcast, and having her as the Owen and then having Tony as the champ, it just makes them look a lot more dominant.
Well, yeah, I do agree that Ruby does need it a lot, and it would certainly help her career moving forward. But now let's move on to a new faction in AEW, and that is Bullet Club Gold. And a lot of people were dissing these guys. I mean, a lot of people even kind of slamming Jay White, and I was not happy about that. I went to bat for him. Yeah, like Clark. I went to bat for Jay White when you said that, Clark, right? I completely and utterly disagreed with that opinion. I know Ignacio feels a similar way. Again, I disagree. And then last week against FTR, they proved everybody wrong as they had a banger of a bout. It was truly something. Now, they will face FTR once again this week, but it's going to be in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the AEW Tag Team Championships. Now I'm going to pass this to somebody who actually was there in the arena last week for AEW Collision, where these two teams had a phenomenal match. So, Coby, who do you think is walking out as the AEW Tag Team Champions?
I mean, just to address some things, and I mean, like you said, a lot of people were giving flack to the Bullet Club Gold, and I still think, as much as it's a genuine concern, I do think it's something that can be talked about. I think a question to be asked just shortly without an answer, it's called rhetorical, is do they get last week's match if this match happened on Dynamite? I think the entire thing here is the fact that they got the platform at Collision. Collision's taking a much different approach to television than what Dynamite is. I think that's why Bullet Club Gold's going to be special. I think if Collision was never introduced, Bullet Club Gold's definitely in a limbo. But with that being said, I think a critical point surrounding the future match that can be said is they gave so much last week, and it was 28 minutes something seconds, but it was a 28-minute match that now they're going to have to do a similar match with 3 falls. That I think the thing is that they delivered such a great match that I think they have such high expectations with this match that I think they can it might hinder it, because they either have possibly a little more time, they might crack into the 30 minutes. I don't think so. Or they have less than the 28 minutes they were given last week. That's the thing. I don't know if they're going to hinder this match, but I don't think it is because of the talent within the match. All 4 guys can truly deliver. And I mean, it's going to be interesting because we kind of seen how they've played off FTR. They beat the Briscoes, rest in peace, Jay, in 2 or 3 falls last July. And I think they also won maybe one more on television. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a fun match. I hope it does. I think it easily is going to be match of the night once again, for Collision. But there's not much more you can ask for in a highly competitive and entertaining tag match like what we're going to get with FTR and the Bullet Club Gold.
So, and I agree with all of that entertainment wise, but you've got the Guns in Bullet Club Gold, who are technically the more accomplished tag team in AEW than Jay White and Juice Robinson. And now we've got 2 out of 3 falls after last week's title eliminator match, my least favorite thing in the world. And FTR is probably going to keep the belts. You'll get a fall for Bullet Club or Die Bullet Club. I'm sure they'll probably get the first fall. But at the end of the day, then what? Then what do we do next? Is it the Guns? Are the Guns going to come in and save Jay White and Juice? And that's what bothers me, is we're not presenting Jay White and Juice as the legitimate Bullet Club threats that they need to be. At this point, the Guns look like the stronger team of the two. They had one great match in a title eliminator. Now we're going to get a 2 out of 3 and FTR goes over. Then what?
Well, in fairness, they're 2 single guys who are currently, together as a tag team. I mean, they're not meant to be the tag team in Bullet Club Gold. That tag team is meant to be the Guns. So I don't really have an issue with it, as long as, obviously, Jay White wins a few of his next matches and they continue to build him. But as long as the Guns look like a threat in the tag team division, I'm not mad about it at all. I think you have an agenda against Bullet Club Gold, Clark. I think just like Cody, you have an agenda against them.
It's not. If you look at the way the bloodline is structured, right? As much as the Usos were Roman's backup, and same with Solo, they never were seemingly stronger until it was the storyline of the Bloodline Civil War. They were never booked stronger than Roman Reigns. And it bothers me because Jay White's so good. This is why it bothers me. It's because I like Jay White, right? Yeah. I think he's awesome. But Jay White needs to look like the figurehead in the Bullet Club Gold. and the Guns weirdly look stronger. It doesn't make sense. Him and Juice look like equals. And as great as the matches are, and I have no doubt 2 out of 3 falls with FTR, how could they possibly mess that up? There's no way, right? It's a can't miss match, but I just don't know where we go from here. And it bothers me because Jay White needs to be Jay White. I want Switchblade. I want main eventer. I want nasty Jay White. And the way he works the pace, you and I have discussed this personally, right? Fits WWE style and stuff. I think it's great for AEW. His style and pace, it's unique. Yeah. He does it differently than everyone else. Let's push him. Come on. Don't let Jay White get stagnant on me every Saturday night just because he can wrestle every Saturday night. Don't do that. I'm begging Tony Khan, please don't do that.
Fair enough. I mean, when you explain yourself there, yeah, fair enough, Clark. I do agree, but I don't have an issue with this match, and I'm looking forward to it tonight. Now, if following it, there's no real good booking of him, then I'll probably end up agreeing with you in the long run. But now let's move on and let's talk about the main event of AEW Collision, or what I presume will be the main event of AEW Collision tomorrow night, which is the final of the men's Owen Hart Cup tournament, where CM Punk will be will be taking on Ricky Starks. And honestly, I am excited for this match. It's an interesting one too, as obviously it's a babyface against technically a babyface, but he's a bit of a tweener because obviously some crowds hate him, some crowds love him. But yes, CM Punk versus Ricky Starks, it's a very, very hard one to predict. I'm really hoping that Ricky Starks does get the victory here because I think he needs it a lot more than CM Punk does. But in reality, I do think that CM Punk will be getting this win, and then we're going to find out, that we're going to see that championship, which is in his bag, and they'll set up a feud with MJF following whatever they're doing with Adam Cole. But Shad, I'll pass it to you first. Who do you think's walking out of AEW Collision as with the men's Owen?
As much as I would love for it to be Ricky Starks, I think it's definitely CM Punk's match to lose. I mean, I don't see him losing this match at all. I feel like this tournament was kind of built for him, and I think it's pretty much the right call for the most part, just knowing CM Punk's notoriety, all the hype of him coming back and whatnot, and just being back into wrestling. And just how much I'm sure this, like the prestige of this tournament would mean to him, him being just a massive wrestling fan and being a, Bret Hart guy, and how much Owens lineage probably means a lot to him as a fan. So I think it's going to go to CM Punk. And from there is where it's going to get interesting. And that's where most of my intrigue is, just to see what storyline is built for him right after he wins that. What type of programs are we going to mix him in with? Are we still going to, hopefully we get to see him and Samoa Joe continue a feud. But that's also the other thing that in the back of my head that I'm thinking about is, will Samoa Joe find a way to intertwine himself to get Punk to lose, or will he attack him after it? I don't know. There's a lot of different directions this can go, but in my mind, I think we're gonna have a nice, clean match. I think it'll be CM Punk getting the win over Ricky Starks. I think it's not a big L for Ricky because I think he's been showcased well in this tournament. Having this type of match with a CM Punk is gonna be great for him. And just like y'all was saying with Jay White, Ricky Starks to me is a main event guy. He's someone that needs to be positioned well for the future. He's the type of guy that could be a future world champion. Definitely can take one of those mid-card titles that they have whenever they want to put it on him, because he's just incredible as an in-ring wrestler and then just as a personality outside the wrestling too.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Coby? Who do you think is walking out with the Owen?
I mean, I hate to be the guy that can just continues to say CM Punk, but it is CM Punk. I mean, this is the match that I did predict last week. The one person that predicted Ricky Starks versus CM Punk being the finals. I mean, they telegraphed it with Punk being the guy that respects Ricky Starks, and they were involved since a few weeks ago, and since the second week of Collision. At the end of the day, this is a match that needs to deliver as well. But Punk, it's going to be solid action. You have Punk, you have Ricky Starks. They're both talented in the ring. I do think Punk goes over because, like you said, they are still posing him as the unbeaten world champion. And whenever that match does happen, you assume it has to be all out because that's where you're going to have the people behind Punk, or you go the other way and he faces MJF at Full Gear because then you can kind of do that double turn of, well, the people are behind MJF and not Punk. Yeah, assuming you get a good place that isn't for Punk like Chicago would be. I don't know where you go. Like I said yesterday, I think I would much rather see Adam Cole versus MJF at All Out because you have a tag match at All In to where the turn happens. I don't know where they go. I see that's where they're going with it, but at the end of the day, it should be a really good match between both men. It's the Owen finals. Last year's was all right with Adam Cole winning, but this year, I mean, it is going to be Punk. It is.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. The one thing I will not agree with you on is that tag match. Because, I mean, shout out to Soul because he gave that exact opinion as well the other day. But I very strongly feel on their biggest show ever, the AEW World Heavyweight Championship needs to be defended. But that is a conversation point for another day. But Clark, who do you think is walking out with the Owen?
Well, see, this Owen Hart Cup is going to be headed to my kind of town. You know, sweet home Chicago. I mean, there's no doubt. Whether it's an Owen finish, it's the GTS, or he taps the Anaconda device, it's easy money right here. I love Ricky Starks as much as the next guy. He is Shad said it perfectly. He is a future world champion. He's a dynamo on the microphone. Tonight's not your night, buddy. I'm sorry. It's going to Chicago, of course, my hometown, and we'll enjoy it. Absolutely. I mean, there's just no question. This is Punk's tournament. It's Punk's time.
It's Punk's show as well.
I'm happy to be here for it. I'm just stoked to be watching it. And Chicago's back too. Yeah. Not just Punk.
I knew the second Coby mentioned Chicago, I was like, well, Clark's going to come back here and talk about how Chicago is the best town that he's ever been in. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of things that they can go about it. A lot of different possibilities following on from this tournament. But I think we all agree that it's probably heading towards Punk and that, winning. And then following that, Punk, long-term feuding with MJF as well. I personally, because we've got about 20 seconds before we'll have to wrap up here, I personally think that what they should do is, at All In, Adam Cole and MJF, at All Out, CM Punk versus MJF. Because yes, you could build it for a long time, but it doesn't need that much build. It really doesn't. It's title versus title. I'd prefer for them to build it longer. Of course I would. But they booked themselves in a position where they have 2 pay-per-views in 2 weeks. And I think that is the best they can possibly do at this moment in time. But guys, that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. It's been a great show. We spoke about Slammiversary, AEW Collision, AEW Battle of the Belt, SmackDown. There's a lot of wrestling this weekend. I can't even say it in one breath. That's how much there is. But if you're over on YouTube, please give us a like and comment and a subscribe. And if you're over on Spotify, thank you. We love our audio listeners. We love our video listeners too, but those audio ones are an extra special place in my heart. Thank you, and please give us a cheeky 5-star. But guys, thank you to Clark, Shad, and Coby. And we will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. the same time, 8 p.m., 3 p.m., 12 p.m., depending on where you are, See you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your